Alrighty, relationship real talk. Here we go. So, this is going to be a really juicy topic, another one. And connection with self is the work that I love to bring. It's where I love to empower people in their relationship with themselves, their connection with themselves, because it's not them, it's you, right? It's about you and what you're bringing to your relationships. And I just put up a post around the body, that there are so many impacts that the relationship with ourselves have on the relationships with others, because it's not about them, it's about you, right? It's about me, it's about you. And I love to illustrate this in relationship, right? In relation to our relationship with our body, because this is where it all starts. And I've had such a ride, such a journey with my body, with feeling comfortable inside myself, right? In this vessel, in this human meat sack, as my friend Tony loves to call it, which always makes me laugh and feel a bit sick at the same time, right? This body that I'm here having this human journey in, and how disconnected I was from it, from my body, from this, right? The vessel, the vehicle that I'm journeying through life within. And how I was like a head walking on legs. And that was how I spent the first 40 years of my life, right? Like so in my head, so in my thoughts, so in my stories, so in my beliefs about what was true and what wasn't, and what was okay and what wasn't. And, just so stuck in that space of overthinking, overanalyzing, catastrophizing, right? All the things that happen up here. And I was so disconnected from this part of myself, and I was robbing myself through that disconnection, not only from feeling at home in my home, right? My home within my home, but also feeling at home in my relationships, because if you don't feel at home in your body, how are you ever going to feel at home in your relationships, right? In your home. I know people that have left the country, right? Running away, right? For something else, and not because not because what's on the other side, right? The old grass is always greener, but because they're not comfortable inside themselves. They're not at home with themselves. So they're running to get away from that discomfort, that disconnection, and taking them further into disconnection. And I've done this myself, right? Didn't realize I was doing it at the time. It's not like I sat down and consciously planned it, but that is what was happening. And this disconnection from my body was so apparent in relation to my sexuality, my sensuality, my pleasure, my experience of life with a body, right? My aliveness, my playfulness, my joy. And a lot of it, and this is going to be the way that I talk about this juicy topic, because it's such a big topic. And I've recently done a lot of sharing around a program that I put out called The Sexy Stuff, around sex, right? Around sex, around love, around intimacy, these juicy feeling parts of our relationship that I wasn't feeling because I was so disconnected. So one of the things that I saw in my past was how much I gave sex out of obligation, right? It was something that I felt obligated to give. It was something that I was conditioned to feel obligated to give. And it wasn't about desire. It wasn't about connection. It wasn't about the pleasure and the bliss that can be created, right, in terms of a sexual connection. It was about obligation. And when I saw this, because this is looking back, hindsight goggles are really handy, aren't they? It's not that I knew it while I was in it, because I didn't. It was an evolution out of that. But when the penny did drop, and it was like, wow, this is what I'm doing, and I made and I'd made a choice to stop giving it out of obligation. But what was happening was that, because I didn't have the consciousness back then, the behavior that was happening was I stopped showing my body. And it wasn't like I was ever, in the first 40 years of my life, I was never one of those people that would walk around the house naked. I wasn't that. But I certainly wasn't, hiding my body. And that was what I started to do. I was hiding my body from my husband. And the reason why I was doing that was because I didn't want him to initiate any kind of sexual connection, right? I didn't want it. And that, it completely started to dissolve, right? To break down our relational intimacy, our connection. And I didn't even realize that I was doing it, right? It was like there was a physical disconnection from myself. I was very disconnected from my body. I had so much self-loathing, such, dissatisfaction. God, that's not even enough, right? I hated my body. Let's just be really, really clear about that. And because I'd landed with this, I don't want to give sex out of obligation. And there's a reason for that, right? There's a reason why we give sex out of obligation, and there's a reason why we get to a point where we stop. And it's in my program. And it's like, man, I had no idea that was even happening. What led to me giving it out of obligation, and what led to me wanting to reclaim that back. But what happened was that I started to hide from my husband. I started to hide my body. I started to disconnect from myself even more. And that created an emotional withdrawal, because I wasn't at home in myself, right? And if you're not at home in yourself, then how the hell can you open to others, right? Sex and touch and intimacy, all of those things feel unsafe, or they feel like a performance, like I've just got to go through the motions, right? And there's so much obligation in that. And the impact that this has on our relationship with our partners, because I had withdrawn, I had started hiding. I would go into my room to get changed. I would never be seen with no clothes on. That's the level that I got to. Withdrawing emotionally, sexually, energetically, right? I was pulling myself all in, yeah? And this is the thing, all right? I was modeling that shame that I had around my body to my kids, right? And this was like one of the biggest emotional gut punches that I've ever experienced. Because I watched my little guy, right, who was probably around three at the time, maybe a little bit older. Yeah, no, he would have been a bit older, because when he was around, 2, 3, and they're running around naked and they've got their butt out, and, they don't care, right? Naked kids it's like they don't even think about it. And then as he started to get older, I watched him start to change, right? I watched him start to cover up. I watched him start to withdraw. And he was absorbing my shame, right? He was absorbing my body shame, right? My body loathing, uncomfortability, right? My body hatred, right? And absorbing that wounding. And that was just such as I said, an emotional gut punch. So if you're watching on the live, and if you're watching on the replay as well, let me know, do you get what I'm saying here? Because this is just so incredibly huge in terms of that. Yes, of course it impacts us. Of course it impacts our relationships. the way, the connection, the relationship that we have with our body. However, it's not just us. It's not just us feeling disconnected. It's not just us robbing ourselves of what's possible when we do feel at home in our body. And I'm not just talking about sex and sexuality and pleasure, although all those things are fucking great, let's be real. When we get to a different place, because that took me a lot of intention and commitment to create a really different experience for myself. Because if you're coming from a place that is numb or shut down, oh my God, I feel you, because that is where I was, right? That is where I was. I was so disconnected from myself that it's like I couldn't feel, right? And here's the thing. It's not like I knew it at the time, because I didn't. It's not like I knew what was possible, because I didn't. I didn't know what was possible in terms of what I could experience, right? From a physical, emotional, energetic point of view. I had no idea that that was possible, because this numbness, this disconnection, this not feeling at home inside myself was my normal, right? That was just my normal. So if you're hearing this, if you're like, oh my God, I've felt that, or I still feel that, or, let me know what you're getting in the comments. And if you're watching on the recording as well, because look, what I learned, right, apart from the fact that what was my normal, I wasn't happy with anymore, and I wanted to create something different, which was great, because it invited me to actually really do something about it and really make the choice to follow through on wanting to do something about it. Because once I'd had like even just a little taste of that something else was possible, I was all over it. I was like, I want that for myself. And I've just got off a call actually with a beautiful group of very, very powerhouse women. And we were talking about exactly this, like wanting it and allowing yourself to want it, because so many of us have been taught that we're not allowed to want, right? That it's not okay to want for things, right? You think about it. Little Jimmy wants a cookie. No, you can't have a cookie, right? I'm not allowed to want for things. Right? And I get this, because every time my kids ask me for something and they say, oh, Mom, I really want this, I'm like, and the words just want to fly out of my mouth, the old words of, no, you can't have it, and no, you have to eat your dinner first, and no, we can't afford it, and all of those old fucking stories that shut down our desire, right, to want things. So if you want something different, you really got to want it, right? You really got to want it. Because our energy is everything, right? What we bring to it, yeah? We can only create what we want. We've got to want this. We've got to choose it for ourselves. And when that landed for me, that the energy that I bring is everything in relation to the way that I was hiding my body and covering myself and the disconnected and numb, everything that I've been talking about. Because it's not just about how we look, right? Our relationship with our body is not just about how we look. And I thought it was, right? And that's what sent me into these downward spirals of unhappiness and hating on my body and hating how I looked. And even when I was like in my 20s, and I had a fine body, right? But I was so critical and, fell into comparisonitis and, I hadn't had kids yet. My boobs were still up here, right? It's like, oh my God. And how I made it about how I looked, right? And it's not about how we look. Our connection with our body is not about how it looks on the outside. It's about how we feel on the inside and how everyone else feels that. Right? That's what they feel. And this has been mind-blowing for me when I've been in deep dive trainings around sexuality and around eros and around really starting to waken up this beautiful life force energy, right? Prana, sexual energy, mojo, right? Whatever you want to call it. that I was attracted to people because there was a lot, we were working with attraction and not just like looking beyond the physicality of someone. And I was attracted to people that I never would have found attractive before because I was attracted to their energy. I was attracted to the way that they felt in their own body, right? Huge. So different than, oh my God, he's hot, swipe right. Yeah? And we wonder why the dating apps are starting to really impact the world of relating, which I'll talk about in another video. So energy doesn't lie, right? It doesn't lie. And people feel your contraction. They feel your lack of internal safety. They feel that you want to hide, right? Or they feel your openness. They feel that you've got yourself. They feel the way that you feel inside. I've just seen that there's a comment. Let's see if I can. Oh, yeah, Jackie, not taught how to feel back in the day. Oh my God, yes. I just turned on the comments. Feel your openness, right? Feel it. That's where I was, wasn't it? Feel your openness. They feel how you feel, right, about being in your body. That's what they feel. That's what other people feel. And you either become, magnetizing, where people just want to be around you, or you become repelling, right? When your energy says, don't look at me, right? Even silently, right? It's not like you're saying, don't look at me, right? You are saying it with your energy. So what I love about this is that there's a real difference between this energy of shame, right? Which I had a lot of because I was so disconnected from my body. Not only was I disconnected from it, I hated on my body. And then this yes energy, which is what I love to call it. It's like this energy of like, yes, right? I'm so in my body and I'm loving it. What is that, right? What is that energy? This is the groundedness. This is the fucking vibrancy. This is the fuck yes to life energy, right? As opposed to the shame energy, right? Shut down, hidden, defensive, withholding, contracting, hiding, right? Because attraction is energetic. It's not visual, right? It's energetic. Right, how many times have you hooked up with someone that you thought was fine and it just wasn't that? It just wasn't. And that's happened to me. If I'm choosing based on the physical appearance of someone, right? This is energy. Attraction is energetic. Yeah, even sexually. The energy that we radiate, it determines who we attract and how connected we feel to them. It's huge because this is an inside out job, not an outside in job. And this has just been so pivotal in my connection with myself and the work that I'm doing with others. Because people say, well, aren't you a relationship coach? Don't you help people on their relationships? I'm like, yeah, I do. And we start here, right? We start with the one that you have with yourself because it's an inside out job, not an outside in job. Right? And the relationship with your body, it's not about weight. It's not about fitness. It's not about how your body looks. It's about how it feels to be in your body. Right? That's where connection begins, with how connected you feel, right? And you are to yourself. And when we shift from that external focus, right? And I've watched my what am I trying to say? I've watched I'll just say it blankly, the issues with my weight absolutely dissolve when I made that shift. When I shifted away from what I looked like to what I felt like, there were no more issues. Right? No more issues. It's just so huge. Once I'd shifted in here and shifted the relationship with myself, with my body internally, everything outside shifted anyway. Everything outside, right? Inside out. And there is a generational impact. And this really helped me to understand, because I really wanted to know what I was modeling to my children, because our kids feel this relationship that we have with our bodies, right? Body shame is contagious. They inherit what we carry, right? And shifting our relationship with our body is part of breaking that cycle, right? Because then we're modeling something completely different, right? A coming home to our body. And when we do, it's a portal to real intimacy, right? True intimacy, where the authentic connection, true connection, right? It starts inside our skin, right? Inside our bodies. And I love this, because when we bring it back into here, right? We don't need to fix our bodies. We don't need to change anything, right? And that the consumerist reality that we live in, where now you got to have a bigger butt, right? Now you got to have bigger lips, you got to have no lines, you get all this stuff that's the outside, and you got to do this and you got to do that. Don't need to fix anything, right? You just need to feel, right, inside your body. And man, what you ripple out and radiate is magnetizing. It's magnetizing. Right? Everything changes from that place. Your sex life, your parenting, your capacity to receive love, everything. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this big, juicy topic of the way that our relationship with our body has, the relationship with ourself, starting with our body, has these massive impacts on our relationships with other people, right? Especially our children, right? Our partners, everyone that we come into connection with, because they're either magnetized to us or they're repelled from us, right? So if you want to become more magnetic, it's not about them. It's not about the external. It's about what's going on here. And if you want to change that, I want to hear from you, because that's what I love to do. All right, beauties, big love. I'm going to take off and move into the rest of my day. I would love to hear your comments, especially if you're following along on the replay. And I will see you next week for another session of Relationship Real Talk. Ciao. Let's end the video.